Hi friends, welcome to Artist Confessional. Today we are going to do something a little unconventional and we are going to hit the road and go on a mural tour. It's like a sketchbook tour but on a bit of a bigger scale.
What are the secrets of studio practice? I wanna know all your good and bad habits. How do you make art like a pro? There's so many ways to do so. Stick around cause you'll find out on Artist Confessionals. Artist Confessionals with Sparkbox Studio.
We are off to Bloomfield today to look at some murals that I've done because we just finished putting up a mural recently, a new one in Bloomfield. So thought, what better way to celebrate than to go on a bit of a tour and see some of the other work that I've done. We can talk about how the work's changed over the years and also take the little Corky for a walk. Hi, we're in Bloomfield. So right now we're in the public parking lot and we're going to go across the street to one of the first-ish murals, the first, I don't know when I actually made that one, maybe like 2016? Some of you may also recognize the name Bloomfield from the gallery that Kyle and I ran, and we talked about it actually in the last video. We decommissioned it recently to move all of our artwork back to the house. This mural I did on MDO signboard, and Kyle cut out all around the different flower elements so that the brick of the building could really shine through because it's such a beautiful old brick building. It also meant that we could deal with some of the elements on the building better. So there's this awning that's coming off over the top of the door, and we didn't want to have to remove that. So when we're working on mural projects, we have to think about what's the space like, what kind of material are we putting the mural onto, and then how can we best make sure that whoever we're working with, whoever our client is, doesn't have to do, as much work to prep for the mural as possible. And so not having to take down that awning was something we wanted to consider. So we created this garden image that's sort of coming up and surrounding the door and then allowing that brick to pop through. And we also made some extra little flowers that are stuck on top. They're subtle from this distance, but when you're up close you can see them popping out. And Tammy, the owner of Handworks, actually added a really beautiful detail to that. She allowed the guests that happened to be staying in the garden suite to write on the back almost like a guest book, and they installed it onto the mural where they wanted it to be. So there's this secret hidden guest book that is part of the mural, which I just think is a really adorable addition. Come here, buddy. Okay, come on, let's go. The first series of murals that I did in Bloomfield were for Angeline's on the motel doors. So adding a bunch of flowers and color to each of the numbers on the doors, which was actually a really fun experience because it was doing these punch out murals instead of one big wall. Working on the doors at Angeline's was interesting in the sense that I got to paint in a really different way, in these sort of number shapes, but painting onto metal doors with all of the bumpity bits of doors meant that it felt like it took forever and was actually quite challenging. I still think that the mural inside Angeline's cafe is one of my favorites. There's something about, well, one, I got to work on a flat wall, and up until that point I hadn't gotten to work on one big flat wall. So that was such a wonderful experience. But also there's something about the line work and the way that I got to play with detail in that particular piece, and I'm just fond of. Every time I go back to it, I really love this mural so much. Beyond going to school there and being there as a kid, I also worked in Bloomfield. I worked at Angeline's, I worked at a place called the Carriage House. I've spent a lot of time in this place. It really does feel like I have deep roots in this little village, and it's also adorable. So, you know, that's an added plus. So yeah, to say that we've done a lot of things in Bloomfield, I feel like is an understatement. This is the silo project that I did in 2021. And it was for this place called The Ranch. And they have a really cool like specialty like dog play area, which I love. And I got to work on this old, like century-old silo. I've never worked on a silo before. I've never worked on like a round surface. It was a very different approach. And again, just trying to think of like, how do I brighten up this space? How do I bring nature onto this silo? And also think about traffic. So that was fun, to like make something that kind of pulls people off the road to take a picture with the piece. I really loved that. There is something really nice about going back and kind of walking through and re-looking and revisiting all of these pieces. Because they're connected, obviously. They all have botanicals, they all have bright colors, even the color palettes more or less are similar in a sense. Obviously, I have to introduce different colors depending on who I'm working for, but for the most part, there's a continuity to them, which I love. The content for the murals began with a project that I did for Burt's Bees, actually, where I created a still life of flowers. And I never thought that I would want to paint flowers. I just didn't seem like something I'd be interested in. But of course, as soon as you start painting flowers, you kind of fall in love with it because they are very enjoyable to paint. And so the murals have always had a botanical interest. Usually I focus on wildflowers unless I'm specifically asked by a client to pick a different type of flower. But for the most part, I look at wildflowers or sometimes weeds. So this most recent piece actually looks almost exclusively at weeds and plants that most people pull out of their gardens. They don't choose to put them into their gardens. We're off to the next mural. We're gonna go to the newest mural that we have because it is the closest to this. And this is where I went to elementary school. I didn't grow up in Bloomfield, but when I was a kid, you could get when you were in like an older grade, you could get your parents to write a note saying that you were allowed to go into Bloomfield proper for lunch if you wanted. And so sometimes I would get to like walk around the town as a little kid for lunchtime, which I loved. It was like such an adorable place to grow up. New mural. So this is the newest mural that we just, well, it's not completely finished, but it's more or less finished. This is for the Bloomfield Town Hall. It is sort of a revitalization project to turn this cinder block bathroom at the back of a long alley into a more inviting space. The dog wants to drink the coffee. A more inviting space so that people don't feel worried about coming down here and using this space. And we wanted to bring some of the flowers and colors of Bloomfield to this back area. Good job, Ziggs. Again, it's on the signboard. We did a whole video that talks about how we prepped for this, which you can watch in the link below. But basically, it's on a bunch of MDO signboard that we painted at our studio and then we brought here and mounted. And we really were just kind of like, I mean, we did a good job planning, but anytime you do a project like this, we had to, paint it in stages. And so this is the first time we actually got to see it like up on the wall as a whole unit, and it came together really nice. All of the hard work and effort that Kyle put into mapping everything out totally paid off, and the only thing I have left to do on it is cover up some more of the screws with paint just to blend it in a little bit more, but overall it's totally done. Growing up in Bloomfield, I really loved, I don't know how to describe this town. It kind of felt like when I was a little kid, this area was felt like kind of like being in kind of like a fairy tale book or something like that. Like it just felt like I was in, you know, Anne of Green Gables or something. It was a really cute place to come and walk around and be a part of when I was little. And in the springtime, there was a bunch of families that would have these amazing gardens, like mostly tulips and daffodils. And so in the spring, we would like get to go on these walks and see all of these like beautiful flower gardens. And that like spirit of just like playful garden, pretty energy is what I really wanted to bring to this mural. I mean, it kind of inspires all of my murals when I think about them as a collective whole, but this one, I wanted to also talk a little bit about the flowers that go a bit unseen. And there's this book that I have at the house about gardening, and it talks about the different layers of soil and, you know, how weeds and plants that maybe we underutilize or try to get rid of actually bring a lot to permaculture and contribute a lot to gardens. And so that was what inspired this. So on the wall, there's obviously the colors are not the same, but there's like dandelions and different types of grasses and funguses and cattails and just plants that sometimes are, you know, not considered the ones you want to have in your garden space. And I just wanted to highlight them here and make them feel like joyous and pretty. And then also play with shape and texture and how I'm utilizing the space, because obviously a big wall and we wanted people to be able to see it from the street when they're walking down. So we wanted to like grab attention. So really bold shapes and that sort of thing. All right, now that you've seen all these murals, I would really love to hear which one you really liked. What was your favorite? I'm gonna start doing some paintings that are maybe in line with the murals. I have a bunch of offcuts of old murals, so if there's flowers that you want me to play around with, something that's your favorite, share it in the comments below. It would be fun to feel like I'm collaborating with all of you on some works that are coming down the line. Thanks so much for coming on this mural tour with me. It was really fun to take you along and show you, you know, some of the old works and then also this newest project that we just finished. If you want to keep supporting us on these lovely studio vlogs, be sure to subscribe and like, and our Patreon link is below as well. Hope you can join us on the next one. Thanks so much.
What are the secrets of studio practice?